I'll start first, and then I'll introduce you, bring you all up in full frame, and then we'll go from there. Hello, hello. My name is Michelle Williams. For those of you all who do not know me, and thank you for tuning in this evening for this vibrant and lively conversation about the HISD bond. So, thank you for tuning in. So, tonight's guest. HISD bond. So, thank you for tuning in. So tonight's guest, HISD bond. So thank you for turning it down. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead. Let me pull Miss Williamson in, and we're going to start with introductions. For those of you all don't know me, my name is Michelle Williams. I am the president of the Houston Education Association, and I am an educator in the Houston Independent School District. Yes, I am her. I am she, the one who everybody has been talking about. Yes, I was the union president that was um, attempted to be terminated, and it did not succeed. And I was placed back at a campus in HISD this school year. So, Dr. Michelin, go ahead.
Yeah,
We'll
that's correct.
start with you.
Sure. Hi, my name is Dr. Leah Michelin. I am a former principal in HISD. I was a principal for 3 years, and then I was a dean of instruction at a high school for two. Prior to that, I was in a much smaller suburban district, Pearland ISD, as an assistant principal, school counselor, and teacher. So I have since left, and I'm in a nearby public school district, loving life. And so I was on many committees and principals advisory committee, senior leadership academy. So I felt I had a pretty good career in HISD, and so I'm pretty invested in speaking out.
Very good. Miss Dillard.
Thank you for having me. First of all, Michelle and your other guests, my name is Crystal Dillard. I am a 17-year veteran teacher, 15 of those being in HISD. I was with HISD until November of 2023, at which time I decided to um, say my goodbyes to HISD. I am now in another nearby district, loving life. And I do definitely have some thoughts on the bond and some of the direction that HISD is going in at this time.
Excellent. And we'll end it with Miss Williamson. Excellent. And we'll end it with Miss Williamson.
Okay, I'm hoping that you all can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, I'm Nelvie Williamson. I'm a veteran teacher. Let me mute my phone because I'm trying to toggle two devices. I'm a veteran teacher with HISD. I have been with HISD my entire career, which is 44 years. This is my 44th year. And I have seen several superintendents. I think this guy is my 12th superintendent. Started off with Billy Reagan. And I think this guy is my 12th. I think I could wait it out for the 13th. Lucky number 13. And I have a lot of thoughts about this bond. I have been in the district long enough to have been around for several bonds. The last bond initiative, uh, I'll get into it in a little bit, was not, the funds were not well spent. Well, they were spent, but they were not well spent, and they did not say all that they were supposed to. They did not do what they said they were going to do, even with an elected board. So, I have no trust in what might happen with this guy.
All right, so let's just hop right into it. So, question number one, why do you not support the $4.4 billion bond for Houston ISD? And who would like to go first?
Well, Michelle, I certainly don't mind going first because I am a little bit passionate about it, and I'll tell you why. I think that it stands to reason that with the type um, of lack of transparency overall that we've seen it just in this past year from the time that I began my school year in 2023 with HISD. And first of all, I will say this. I love my school district and I love my school and I love being an HISD teacher. I will say this. I'm a teacher that's never had a write-up. I've never had disciplinary action, and I've been a member of the union for all the years that I've been in HISD, never had to use the union. So my experience has been a very, very good experience. But I will say this, from day one, there was what I perceive to be a distrust of educators, what I perceive to be a discounting of the value of educators, a discounting of our professionalism in terms of our certification and what we do to keep ourselves tip top in our craft. And for anyone to come in and devalue us like that, that made me very apprehensive from just out of the gate. And especially when this bond was introduced, and there was absolutely no, I don't want to say accountability because there could very well down the line be some accountability. But based on what I've seen so far, you've got to look at what history has shown you. History doesn't have a way of lying to you. History is what it is, and it's always the truth.
Absolutely.
I was,
Absolutely. Go ahead, Dr. Michelle.
yeah, I'd like to add to that. So I agree with everything you said, Ms. Dillard. It would be malpractice to support this leadership in doing anything with that much money. They've proven that there is no department that they have been successful with, whether it is budget, whether it's communication, maintenance, PD for teachers, convocation, handbooks for appraisal, you name it, there has been an issue with it. So, what in my right mind would I say, oh, yeah, they're going to do what they say they're going to do with the bond? I mean, it's absolute, it's ludicrous. It's throwing, anything that they put out is not research based. It doesn't have community input. And so I don't trust a word that is anything that's printed nor a word that comes out of their mouths. So it would be foolish for us to trust. And it's sad because I think we all agree. I mean, all educators for, I mean, goodness, 40 something years, um, that we care about kids. We care about kids. We absolutely care about kids. We care about teachers. And so to say no to this, we would not do that lightly. None of us would sit here and want to say no to improving the schools. So there has to be a pretty good reason for us to put our foot down and to say no.
Absolutely. And that's
So there has
one
to be a pretty good.
reason why I wanted to have this conversation because, I get a lot of flack on our union handle, and they were like, well, what kind of education group would not support a bond? And it is. We need the bond, but we don't need it under the current administration. That's where the rubber meets the road. And for
Absolutely.
me, I'm an avid no. Nothing. Proposition A, B. If there was a C and a D, no, 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 and no. Because at the end of the day, they're they're taking all of the money,
Because
the
at the end
budget,
of the
and they are sucking it into this failed model, and everything else doesn't matter. And that's what essentially happened with Terry Greer. He started taking money and putting it where? Into the Apollo program. That's the same thing that's going to happen here. And you cannot trust this administration. I am avid about that. The things that are going on, it is just it's lock and step into what we can predict is going to happen with this bond. Ms.
Right.
Williamson, would you like to add? Going to happen with this bond. Ms.
Right.
Williamson, would you like to add?
Yes, I would. From the very beginning, I had no trust in what was going on here. When they first said, this takeover is going to happen, they kept saying, oh no, it's not Mike Miles. It's not Mike Miles. It's not Mike Miles. Sylvester Turner told us to our face, yes, it is Mike Miles. They're lying to you. They've been lying to our face from the very start. TEA has been lying to our face from the very start. I have a little bit of history with what happened up in DISD with a relative of mine. I'm not going to go into it right now, but I have that history. So there is no trust in for me in that man coming down here. He messed up Dallas, which is smaller than Houston. Houston is huge. He has an opportunity to really mess us up for decades. And that is really, it is educational malpractice, what is happening on a daily basis here in Houston. So, no, I don't support him getting $4.4 billion when what the surplus that he came in with, he has trampled over and overspent, and we don't have anything to show for it. You wouldn't do that for, if you had a business and had a business loan and you mess it up, and the bank, then you go to the bank, oh, I need some more. The bank says, well, let me see what you've done with this. No, 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 you're not going to get any more because you messed up the little bit that we gave you. We're not going to allow you to do that. And as I said, it is educational malpractice on a daily basis that's happening here in the district.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, next question. Are there specific areas of the bond allocation that concern you? And I'm going to start this one. I am passionate about the Northeast area. I worked at Cashmere Gardens Elementary. I worked at um, Cashmere High School, and I've worked at Forest Brook. So I've spent 6 years in that area, and I have seen under not just this administration, it has been the worst here, but what previous administrations have has done to the Northeast area in that feeder pattern. They are closing those schools and they want to use semantics. And for those of you all who don't know what semantics is, it's wordplay. Oh no, we're not closing the schools. We're co-locating the schools. But closing would mean, hey, if I Google Cashmere Gardens on Lockwood, it would no longer be there. It is closing the school. Technically, when I tell people about TEA numbers, every school has a TEA number. So, no, you're not getting rid of the TEA. By TEA's definition of school closure, it's not going to be closed. But our definition in Houston, Texas, it's closed. Cashmere Gardens will no longer exist on Lockwood Drive. Period. Point blank. And those communities don't deserve that. Key Middle School is full of mold. It has been horrible since Miss Caleb was there. That was when Terry Greer was here. And even before that, it's horrible. Forest Brook, horrible. But you want to renovate these schools and then you want to play favorites, which I don't have any problem with Devin Williams at Fleming. But what I do have a problem is playing favorites with principals because they get out and say what you want them to say for favors. I don't agree with that. And as educators, we should not agree with that as well at the expense of these communities. Fleming does not need to be rebuilt. Key, Forest Brook need to be rebuilt. Cashmere High School, the foyer leagues. So I know about these schools. There are other schools before Fleming Middle School that need to be rebuilt. And the fund, like pre-K, those areas don't have very many pre-K programs. But yet you're going to put them on the west side. If you're putting 20 on the west side, 20 should be on the northeast side. You need to make it equitable. And this bond, this allocation, these co-locations, there's not one co-location on the west side of Houston. Not one. So at the end of the day, if you're gonna merge some schools, yes, make it make sense, as the children say. Merge those schools that were going to be merged, Cashmere Gardens, and the other school was going to be merged. That stuff makes sense. But who puts elementary schools and elementary children on a high school campus like Fur High School? That is ridiculous and it's dangerous. Who wants to go next?
Yeah. Well, and can you
Michelle,
imagine what that looks like? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'll make it really fast. Michelle, and ladies, I will say this. One thing that made me very, very apprehensive about anything that the current administration has to say. And there are certain things that are touch points that you can that are just carved into my brain, that have happened, that have made me say, you know what, if I don't see anything specifically targeting this, then you've got to be kidding for me to advocate for this bond, to let you have free reign with it. One of those things that's a real sore spot for me, because I was at a campus where we had the Michelle, you know what I'm talking about. It's when the kids get the free food. The families can come
Oh,
in. Well,
okay, yeah.
okay, I can't remember the name of it, but we've had it for years. We had it at Navarro Middle School. And when I tell you, the community depended on that. And when we come in
When
and
I tell you the
completely
community.
completely discount the fact that those students in certain areas are going to need more support than students in other areas. If we're truly looking to equalize education, why are we taking from them the things that they need to even be able to get to school and begin to learn? And they put the what is it called, the sunrise centers in strategic areas where the kids and their families have to get on a bus and ride 10 15 miles to pick up a bag of groceries, when they could do it at school before. And anyone who says this, and I've heard this said with the current administration, it's our job to educate the children. Yes, it is. But those teachers like myself who've been there and have seen what situations the children come into our schools with, before you can even get to your curriculum, you've got to get past um, hunger. You've got to get past uh, sometimes dysfunction that may be happening within the family, and all of these things these kids are coming to school with. And when you take away the small things, like food, or being able to go home and know that you're going to have something to eat after lunch because they put it in your backpack and you can go home with it, those kinds of things are important. All types of programs like this have been snatched. And you can't tell me for a minute that if there hadn't been real pushback, that even those sunrise centers would not have been opened. It would have just been done away with. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, that is
Mhm.
true. Because the Sunrise Centers, they didn't make sense. And even the
It it
city of
it,
Houston,
it doesn't.
um, they started putting food stamp offices and all of the resources closer to the people who needed it so that they could opt out and not give an excuse as to why they were not accessing the services. So they basically went against everything that made any ounce of sense.
Yeah.
I worked at the
And look at
food
the money
pantry.
that they're spending on NES, right? Like, look how that they've spent the money for this new initiative versus the non-NES. So, I mean, we are talking over $400,000 just to start up a program, replacing desks with desks, replacing whiteboards with whiteboards. And so, if that's how they run that program, imagine how they set up a co-location. I can't even imagine what that would look like, the logistics. They revamped summer school this year, and that was a mess. So the money that was thrown away and frivolously spent is scary to me. And I think I don't have problems with what's written in the bond. I don't. I mean, I think those are great things. Security, the safety and security above anything else, I think is most important. Um, but I don't. I don't think when you get down to how they're actually spending those dollars, that's what we can't trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, the money, it is a concern
Yeah, and
because
let me
it,
just add on here,
um,
like Leah
the
said.
money, it,
Oh, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Like Leah said, I don't have a problem with what is in the bond because yes, it is needed. It is
Right.
how it is the track record of how money has been spent in this district thus far. You know, I'm in a school that was renovated with the last bond. I don't have a smart board in my room. I was supposed to have one, but it's not a smart board in my room. Most of the teachers' rooms on my campus don't have a touch screen feature. But then when I heard that they were taking working touchscreen boards out of the NES schools or the schools that were designated as NES and putting in working any ones that were working, just replacing them instead of using what was already there that was operational, putting clever boards there instead of the previous model when there are schools that did not have that resource. So for
Yes.
me, once again, it is a matter of them wasting money. And then when I think about that, the previous bond, we're almost finished paying for that previous bond. They keep saying that the bond won't raise our taxes. That's a lie. It's going to continue because it's going to be another 30 or 35 years of paying off money when at a point where that's already been taken care of. Plus the fact that, and as a history teacher, I have to bring this in just very quick. We are not being represented. This is taxation without representation. Okay, we're being taxed, but we don't have the representation that we as Houstonians voted onto. Our elected board has been suspended. And as we know in history, hopefully we know in history, that taxation without representation is what? Tyranny. And when there's a tyrannical
Yes.
there's a tyrant at play here, what do we do? Just like the Declaration of Independence, we have to overthrow that tyrannical regime. I know I'm probably sounding kind of hyperbolic, but we're coming up on the anniversary of the Constitution next week, and those are our founding principles, and they have been absconded through this takeover.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The Constitution has been trampled on, but I mean, it's representative of what's going on at the national level. We act as if the Constitution does not exist because it says we the people. It didn't say dictator, it did not say one person, it said we the people in order to form a more perfect union, and we are united in these principles. But that, the Texas Constitution is being trampled on in regards to funding. So it speaks to a larger issue of what's going on. And it's a system of the haves and the have-nots. The haves can do what they want to do, and the have-nots have to do and listen to what the haves say, and just look at them trample and disregard any law. But let's move to the next question. How do you perceive Mike Miles's leadership in the current administration's approach to education? Let's start there because we've touched on the NES model. We've touched on that. I've been very vocal. People know how I feel about the model, but go ahead and take a stab at it.
Uh, who wants to start? I'll go ahead. So this is my biggest issue with this whole situation is the culture and toxicity of the administration. Um, and it's a one size fits all model. And if you do not buy into that, or at least act like into that, you are then out. Um, his ego, and when I say he, I say Superintendent Miles, is huge. Um, he he's come up with all of this and make this successful, no matter what. And it really bugs accountability ratings coming out and all this hoopla and celebration of went from a D to an F, or I'm sorry, an F to an A, and yada yada yada. That is, when you're doing nothing but test prep all day, that's what you're going to get. And that's what this is. It's test prep. I'm hearing so many stories of these kids just miserable in the school, miserable. Packet after packet is not how you teach. It is not how you teach, and it is so sad that we are denying these kids that experience. And I am a big proponent of teaching the whole child. And so programs like electives and fine art and athletics are sometimes the only reason they go to school, the age. And when we cut that out, that is malpractice. That's education malpractice, period. And so we're not trying to train the future test takers of the world. We're trying to train 21st century learners. This administration wants nothing to hear that. And the big thing that I would hear all the time is your teachers aren't teaching with urgency. They're not with urgency. I mean, they don't know our kids. They don't know what that kid's got going on in that class. And this micromanaging and just-based leadership is just not something I can subscribe to. And that is the biggest problem. It's fear-based. It's toxic. It's sick. And what I think was almost just as scary is hearing it from him and his people that he hired was hearing it from people that I used to work with that thought good for something, and seeing that just change who they are and lead with just such evilness and callousness, even when I would ask questions and look at me like I was crazy. So I think it was just like an alternate reality, and it's sad, and fear and control, honestly.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I have seen a lot of principals turn away from their own moral compass. And that's an issue that I
Yes.
have with people in general. Because at the end of the day, and I know people, I need my job just like you need yours, but my integrity, there's no price tag for it. I'm not going to do things to children that I wouldn't allow a teacher in my grandson's school district to do to him at all,
Right.
regardless. I'm not doing that. So at the end of the day, we have as educators the it is our duty as educators to teach children in a way that we would teach our own children. We have the duty to treat our employees the same way we would like somebody to have to treat us. Because let's be clear, Dr. Stout did not like when I filed that educator code of ethics complaint against her. But it was cool, like the kids say, when you do it. But when I do it, it's a
Mm-hmm.
problem. Because, like I said to the Houston public media, they could have ruined my career with false accusations. They made false accusations against my principal on record. So if anybody wanted to pull that, the court reporter was there. They were false. And they said my principal failed all the teachers at Shadowbriar. But then you want to say Shadowbriar made an A. So if he failed the teachers over there, all of them over there, then why is that like that? Because I have emails where he and I communicated on a regular. So those are the things that I have a problem with at the end of the day.
Yep.
Educators, not even if you're a principal, educators leaving behind their integrity and selling it to the highest bidder. That is my issue.
Yep.
May
One
I
more thing,
speak?
and then I'm gonna let you. But go ahead.
May I speak to that just for a moment, Michelle? And Dr. Michelin and Miss Williamson, I don't know if there's some things that that also reverberate with you, but let me tell you what Wally the end of when I came to the end of the road. And I do want to say this. I was never a target by my principal. I was never a target by any of my administrators. So I would be in what people say good position. However, let me say this. On one day in October of 2023, the eighth grade math teacher to the right of me, the eighth grade ELA teacher to the left of me, on down the hall, another math teacher and another ELA. Long story short, 5 eighth grade teachers were let go on the same day. And let me tell you how this is done. After lunch, everyone got back into the classroom. They had the administrator and another I don't know if it was the security person or the HISD officer, whoever it was. They came to the classroom in the middle of class when the students were in there and asked them to get their bags and purses. And they didn't know what was going on. And they escorted them out of the building. That's how it was done. Now, if there was an issue, I have no problem with people who are not towing the line, in whatever way to be, professional, let go. However, that and students are going, Miss, where are you going? What's going on? This was done in front of the students. And they walked them out of the building and told them they could come back Saturday. You cannot tell me now when you say the selling of the integrity, that was my bottom line. When I saw my colleagues treated in that manner, those people easily at the end of the day or at the end of the week or whatever, they're on salary. They could have been called into the office that Friday evening and said, this is what's going on. And I'm sorry, but it's working out. It's not a good fit. Whatever the conversation was. That's how it could have been done. But that was done that way as a tactic. That was supposed to be an intimidation tactic for everyone else to see. And it was absolutely followed to the nail. The administration and the what do they call the people that are over the
Executive
principals? The
directors.
S yeah, that
Executive
okay
director.
came in, and that's how that was done. They did that in front. Anyone who was walking down the hall, all the kids, and the kids going, Miss, what happened to Miss So and so, or what happened to Mr. So and so? And no questions are answered. And then these are certified teachers that they let. If a teacher is having an issue, there's absolutely at this point there's nothing done to try and help that teacher become proficient. It's just document. Let's document, and get them out of there. That's how that went. And when I saw that, Michelle is okay position right now, but think for a minute that if they'll do that to them, they won't turn around and do it to you.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, to chime in quickly
And
on
that was
that as well
100%.
regarding integrity. Um,
Go ahead.
okay, can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is, as far as integrity is concerned, it just doesn't seem like there is any in the higher up, and then that filters down to the campus. Thus far, my campus has not felt those effects, but there are still things that to do that are, to me, educational malpractice. Like Dr. Michon said, if this is, if we're going to teach to the whole child, if the child is in an advanced placement course, College Board credited course, they should be taught the way that their instructor has been taught to teach them. I hope that makes sense. If they're in an IB course, they should be taught the way that an IB course should be run, or and and a total IB campus. But that is not what is happening. They are forcing this failed model onto true and vetted frameworks of education that have been around for decades. And we know that they work. We see results of children. But there we have to force this, you know, into this NES model. And I have been trained as an AP teacher, and it does not fit. And when it does not fit, then you're the problem. It's not um, that the NES model is a problem, which is unproven. I would like to stand NES up against AP, up against IB, up against Montessori, up against dual language, up against language immersion, and see how that vets out. That would be a really wonderful doctoral thesis. Anyone who is on the line who is looking for
Yeah.
something to write their doctoral thesis on, and that would be really a great thing to do, to match these models up against NES, because the people at the top are saying that NES, they hold so high to this NES model as if it's really doing something. I'm sorry. Kudos to anyone who went from an F to an A and they got the ice cream party. But really, educationally speaking, does that really happen? Does it really happen? Or are you manipulating the data? And once again, that is very bothersome to me. And as Crystal said, just uh, humiliating educators. That is humiliation, to have to tell you to get your purse,
Yes.
get your bag, get your backpack, walk out with a cop as if you've done something wrong. No, and that, what does that do? That then impacts the children, the trust for the children in the teachers. And if those kids knew how many uncertified teachers were facing them on a daily basis, I, for one, would not want to be that certified teacher, because that could be total chaos. Those kids would be, oh, Mr. Miss, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not certified. I would not want to be in that classroom. But, they have taken what has been a profession for a joke, as if anybody who has a resume on Indeed or Monster.com can walk into a classroom and do what I know I have been doing for 44 years.
Absolutely. And they are I recently sent an email to the board of managers, and I know they get sick of hearing from me, but hey, they applied for the job. I didn't. I was here and I'm doing the same things. And it was advocating for those uncertified teachers that were just employees at Starbucks, Chick fil A, Sonic, and the rest of these restaurants, and have been put in front of children. And it is a problem. There are teachers that are sinking. And adding to the problem is you have inexperienced principals. That is a recipe for disaster. And I'm saying, and it is disastrous, because these inexperienced principals, I don't care what certification you have, I don't care if the ink ain't dry yet. You cannot run a campus in Houston Independent School District without support and some experience. And then you got executive directors, from what I hear, who are not qualified to be executive directors. That's a recipe for disasters too. At least I could say some of the SSOs used to have some credibility. At least you could
Yeah.
say, well, they were a principal for 6 years. You have
Yeah.
people who are executive directors who were principals of failing schools. So you
Mhm.
couldn't move your campus, and then you got the unmitigated gall to want to tell a seasoned principal what to do because of your little title. And that's the problem I have with this, because I don't care what their title is. Your experience or lack thereof is the issue. Title doesn't give you the experience. You wouldn't know what to do. Like one year, I was my second year teacher, and the boiler blew up at Lewis Elementary. What you think a first year principal would do with that? We had to march the whole school down to the early childhood center. Do you think they could have done that? Absolutely not. Not.
And
There are a lot of
they
things
have a
that happen.
mentoring other principals. They have a first year principal mentoring new soon to be principals. Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's bananas. It doesn't make any sense. And that's the problem we're having. HISD is a Title One district. Period. We service the most challenging children that come from the area codes. We are an inner city school district. We do not need novice people at a disproportionate as with all these novice people and have this amount of experience. And then you have Mr. Miles saying at the DAC meeting, "Oh, I don't understand why you're upset about the teachers leaving." Because he lives in the twilight zone or whatever, where he got that ring from, the prediction ring, because that makes no sense. Anybody with a credible degree and some sense would know that it is an issue. Your numbers say that it's an issue. This is not opinion, this is fact. You're down 10,000 children plus, and you have teachers in this group saying that they are trying to get away it's the fourth week of school, and teachers are resigning. Not just new teachers, veteran teachers. And if you think that they care about that little sanction, they're going to show you better than they can tell you. They don't
Michelle,
care about the little 1 year sanction, because it doesn't matter when you're trying to escape a version of hell. But moving on. So, how do you feel about the prioritization of funds with this bond? Are there areas you feel should receive more attention? And I'm going to frame this because I'm of the belief that the bond is going to fail. So, if there is a new bond, where would you like to see the bond money prioritized? Or are there some areas in this bond, if they try to pass a current version of it, what would you like to see changed?
may I start that off, Michelle?
Go ahead.
I will say this. What I would like to see more than anything, if there is a revision of what this bond looks like, I think more than anything, there needs to be an oversight committee, not a board of managers, but an oversight committee that is comprised of people from the community, of teachers, of administrators, and people from all of the different areas of HISD, who come together and decide how that money is spent. I think that the community needs to have some hands on, and not just a board of managers. And even if it were an elected board, I think that there still needs to be an oversight committee, because when you give people, when you allow them to have some ownership, then they're going to come up with the best solutions and the best ways to allocate that money, and you're going to have buy-in from their community members.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else want to chime in on this question?
I agree with her completely. I think lack of institutional knowledge is also an issue with the people putting out these policies and programs. Is they have not been in HIC, like you said, Michelle. It's a Title One district. There are unique needs to HIC. There are unique needs to every single community within HIC. West Briar is much different than Garden Oaks Elementary, and you have to put your feet on the ground and talk to people. I mean, when I became a principal, I talked to everybody. I talked to as many people and community members that I could to get to know that community. Because how could I make a decision for a community that I know nothing about? But that's
Right.
what they're doing. And so they're trying to make a lot of these decisions without the community input. And it's not just insulting, but it's bad practice. They don't know the ins and outs. You don't throw this money somewhere and not know the background or the research behind why you're throwing money in that area, or else it's just going to be frivolous and it's not going to make any sense. Like that would be we would get sometimes we would get things or initiatives, and we'd be like, that makes zero sense. Why didn't they do this? Or my secretary would be like, who knows everything, right? Why didn't they talk to them and get some input there and talk to the people who are really on the ground doing these things to make better decisions? And that's not what they're doing. And so I think on a reboot of the bond or another proposal would be including people in the community, people on the ground. My executive directors didn't know the names of anyone on my campus, maybe one person. They never took the time. And that was the ED of support too, who's supposed to be helping with the maintenance in the building. Like, how do you not know the building, yet you're making decisions about the building? It doesn't make sense. So I think that lack of institutional knowledge is very evident in all of the decision making. And so if we do put out a bond, you've got to try to figure out these institutions. So that's just my thought.
And that is a good point because with the air conditioning, and some people are of conspiracy theorists and say, well, it's done intentionally. But look, just last school year, it was not that many air conditioning or HVAC issues. So then you fast forward 2 months and we have all of these issues. So one would have to think that this is intentional to say, hey, we need the bond. No, the answer still is no. The bond is needed. We will always say that. However, we are not writing a blank check to someone who has shown us that they don't care about community input. You don't care about the staff or the children that you are entrusted with by the TA commissioner for God knows what reason. And you're not concerned about Houston, Texas. And I'm sure Mr. Miles does not have a Texas driver's license because he's not even a citizen of the great state of Texas. He plans on going back to Colorado.
Right.
That's for all you people who are trying to give him a Texas check to run back to Colorado with. That's where we are today. We can pass another bond. They want to say that, oh, if we don't pass it now, we'll never. That is not the truth. That was proven one year. I forgot the year. I teach math, so I don't know about no dates. But so it was proven that they passed a bond 18 months later. And
Right.
look at what is a good example is Fort Bend ISD. That article just came out where Fort Bend ISD passed a bond, but guess what? Some of their projects have to be on hold. Guess why? Because they're in a deficit and they
Right.
have to close the deficit. HISD, we have no money. We're as broke as the city of Houston. So that's where we are today because this appointed administration ran up the highest deficit in HISD history, $528 million. I can't even understand why that's a number. And we're about to go into our fund balance. That's what's going to happen. We're in a fiscal cliff and we're going to go underneath what is allotted for our savings account.
Michelle, I know that Miss Williamson has not spoken to your last point, but when she does, there's something that I've got to circle back around to, because I think that it makes a really it really clarifies something that we all need to very, very seriously look at, and look at what the outcome is going to be 3 and 5 years down. But I'll go ahead, because I know that she may want to address what you just said.
Okay.
3 and 5 years down, but I'll
Okay. Thank you, Crystal. I'm sorry, my dog is barking in the background if you hear him. But my thing is this: when you're thinking about some of the things like the HVAC issues and stuff like that, they did away with the personnel who maintained the HVAC systems on a regular, and therefore lack of maintenance has
right.
caused problems. When we think about it, I know that mold, mildew, asbestos, and mitigation, those are important things. But there are also federal funds that could be tapped into in order to help us take care of those. We don't need this extravagant bond in order to do that. And I think about safety systems. What saved some people in that tragic incident last week at Georgia was the fact that they had just put into play a safety system where doors locked automatically, where there was a panic button system that worked. And that is something that, our district, we have been dodging that situation for a number of years with the
Right.
number of firearms that have been confiscated from students. We might be next. I pray we're not. I pray on a daily basis that we are not. But not even paying attention to that issue where there were firearms confiscated off campuses this year. And this, we're just going into week 4. And there has been no public acknowledgement of it. That sweep it under the rug. The young man from Marshall Middle School, let's just ignore that. This administration has shown that they really do not care about the teachers, the students, especially the students, parents. They don't care about Houston just from those things. So, when we start talking about the things that we really, really need, yes, we need safety. We need that same system, something similar to what they had in Georgia. We need mitigation to make our air clean for our students, especially those who are suffering from asthma and things of that nature. But I, in good conscience, cannot say vote for this bond based on the actions of the current administration. Thank you for letting me speak, Crystal.
Absolutely. What you said is absolutely right. But Michelle, I want you all just to think about this for a second. When I went down to the Hattie Mae White administration building to take another ID picture in the fall of 2020, in the summer of 2023, right before the beginning of the school year, when I'm going to describe to you what I saw in line down there. That's when we had all those people rushing to HISD to apply, and this massive new people being hired. It looked like a line outside of a Taylor Swift concert. And I don't mean that in a nothing negative to Taylor Swift, but I mean the sheer numbers. But you had people standing at a line in order to be hired at HISD in what they used to call wife beater shirts.
Yep.
Okay. Blue jeans that were cut off very short, so short that the pocket in the front, the young girls, the pocket in the front, the white part of the pocket hangs out of the front. And they had on flip flops.
Yep.
And another veteran teacher, she's a 27-year veteran, and we were like, my gosh, these are, maybe they're coming in for maybe they have a student issue. But then we went into the other room where people were filling out their paperwork, and it was like just a bullpen. Okay. And they were filling out their paperwork, and there were people in there with bonnets. the bonnets that the young girls wear that are supposed to be slept in. They were filling out their paperwork to be teachers. Now, here's the thing. I am a strong believer in this. Those people who come into education, who either study education or who come in willingly, not because of a really high salary being offered, but willingly because they decide that they're switch careers and be teachers like myself. I was not in education to start with. I was in journalism, but I decided that I wanted to be a teacher back in 2000. And I went through the difficult task of going through alternative certification and all of the professional development yearly that comes along with maintaining your credentials. When people come in and they say, yes, I want to do this, and I know that this is what it's going to take, and I am going to every year maintain my certification, get my professional development, then go into that classroom and sometimes be called all types of names or deal with student meltdowns and all that. If you can withstand that for 3 years to 5 years, then there is a great chance that you'll stay. But with people who don't have any skin in the game, who are in there because they've been promised a big paycheck, and really it's a bait and switch, because I know people who came in who were promised
Yep.
something and they didn't deliver. But what type of allegiance do they have to even want to stay there? The first time a middle school student decides to get in their face, they're going to either go toe to toe with them or they're going to walk out because they don't have any skin in the game. They really don't have to be there. Those of us who are there, who choose to stay there, and who choose to maintain our certification, who choose to stay in the midst of all of that, we're there because we want to be there. All of that was negated. Now, when you've got people who look past that or discount that kind of thing, then you get what you're asking for. My question is this: what is that going to look like in 3 years?
It's
And I
Mm,
think this is the I think this is the end. I think this is it's part of the plan. All of your teachers have gone, all of your certified teachers. You got this huge turnover, because I can guarantee you those people that are coming there under those pretenses, they're not going to stay. When the next best thing comes along with less stress, they're going to take it. And the whole thing is going to be couched in this guise. We told you Houston was failing. There's nothing you can do. So it needs to be maybe a privatized.
yep.
I mean,
That's what
it
I
Yep.
is
think.
it's a
Yeah.
larger issue. But I think, as we move forward, it is a national issue. And I kept
Yes.
telling people, I said, this is not a Houston issue. This is a national issue. Even when we have our president's calls, I tell them, I said, do you understand why this is an issue? Because we are the largest. And if they can take and be successful with the largest, then you other little districts that y'all don't even have the communities, the larger communities to push back. So
Right.
that's why one of the reasons why I fight is hard, because I know that this is a domino effect. This is not
Right.
just one drop in the bucket and we're done. No, they're trying to push this failed model, and that's why I filed the copyright complaint with the U.S. Copyright Office, because they are breaking all kinds of laws, policy laws, all of them. I filed an Office of Civil Rights complaint, because what I tell minority teachers is that history is about to repeat itself. Look back at history when they say when the United States is bleeding, the minority communities are hemorrhaging. And
Yes.
you need to watch very carefully, because history is trying to repeat itself. And we are on the wrong side of history. That's what I want people to know. But we're going to get to our last question. What message would you like to convey to Houston ISD voters who are still undecided about the bond?
Mm. So I'll go ahead. Um, I I want them to hear. hear our experiences. I think that's why speaking out is so important to me. I think when you read some of the comments about people complaining, or complaining is not a good word, but speaking out about the district, well, HISD was a mess before. You're just upset people are putting you in your place, or as a principal, your school failed and now you're making excuses. Um, I need them to look past that and at and listen to the stories. I mean, that story of that teacher being walked out. Oh my God. Um, Teachers leaving a campus is a big deal to students. They look for that consistency. Teachers who have been on campuses even 9 years, 10 years, um, parents put their kids in schools, brothers and sisters. And we saw that a lot at Westbriar with just siblings and generations of kids that would come through because of some of those teachers. Would come back all the time. Hey, is Mr. So and so here? Is Miss So and so here? Um, that is so getting lost in this situation. It's not just getting lost. And you were talking about, Crystal, about what's happening or what's going to happen to those teachers when they're all gone. What's going to happen to the district? What's going to happen to the district when all of we're left in the rubble of this situation?
That's right.
Absolute rubble. We don't have curriculum. We don't have money. We don't have teachers that have any sense, because that's what it is. Teachers or principals that have any sense. What's going to happen to our communities when we don't have kids, because enrollment's going to be out the door because everybody's leaving? Um, it is going to be such a mess, so much a mess, that I've talked about with somebody like this would be a good contract gig, is when this is all over, helping principals rebuild, helping the district rebuild, because that is going to be an endeavor. And so people
Yes.
who don't know anything about education or don't know anything about what's happening here need to read a little bit. They need to listen a little bit, and they need to
Yes.
listen to us as to what we are. I said this before, but I'm just going to say it again. We would not say no to money for a really bad reason. We only say no
Right.
to money if there's a legitimate reason. Ethically, I had chills the entire school year being told to do what they want. They wanted me to walk people out of there. They wanted me to
Yeah.
write teachers up for doing the one little thing wrong, for missing 3 days in a row. They wanted me to do those things, and my soul was just like, no, I can't do this. And that's what we're dealing here. We're dealing with a culture issue. We are dealing with a real culture issue, and it is
Right.
downright evil, and something needs to be done. And so that's the message I would give.
All right.
Well, I can say this, Michelle. Any any the first thing that I could say to my community about this and about uprighting this ship is that you cannot be complacent. If you are not registered to vote, you better get out there and register to vote, because what's happening in HISD is a trickle down. It's trickling down from from the state level. We have got to make sure that we are putting ourselves in a position to be decision makers. I read this in Texas. There are approximately, and this is probably a couple of years old, 475,000, 475,000 active or retired teachers in the state of Texas. For the most part, many of those teachers did not or do not vote. And that's enough of a number to turn an election. Let's be clear, okay? Any of those people who think that this cannot happen to you, or it cannot happen on your watch, you are absolutely wrong. If you are willing to give up your liberty, and having a free and independent school district is part of your liberty that we have as citizens of this country. If you are willing to give that up, you are little by little giving up your right to everything that we fought hard for. And I know that Miss Nelva can say this. Horace Mann would be rolling over in his grave. He's the father of public education. He'd be rolling over in his grave, because his whole idea was to create a situation where you can equalize education and opportunity between the haves and the have-nots. And if you keep that divide there, you're always going to have a situation where people are not able to advance. And what I think many people are seeing right now and becoming afraid of is people who would be considered have-nots getting an opportunity to advance and somehow threatening the livelihood of their situation. But I will say this, and I've always been a proponent of this, like President Kennedy said about the rising tide. Okay, the rising tide is gonna float all the boats. It's gonna raise everyone up. And the more opportunity that people are able to get through public education, the more entrepreneurs we're going to have, the more opportunities they're creating for other people. It's not a zero sum game where if you get some, I lose this. The more people have opportunity, the more they're going to create opportunity for others. So we need to understand that and make sure that public education is something that we will have until the end of time.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Ms. Williamson? Ms. Williams?
Yes, let me just chime in. I agree with what everyone has said up to this point. And we could already see this two-tiered system in Houston with NES and the non-NES schools. Those who are listening, if you are parents, if you're teachers, whoever you are Houstonians, look at what NES schools have been given versus non-NES schools. Is that fair? Is that equitable? Is that how we want to go forward in this in our city? It's not going to take us forward. It is dividing us. And when you
Yes.
look at things such as the closure of libraries, the inadequacies of sports programs, busing, all of these things that are part of education that are important for making sure that our students are well educated are being just flitted away right in front of our eyes. We talk about haves and have nots. It in this district, it is NES versus non-NES. It is a failed, unresearched system against what it could be educationally correct. So we need to think about that those types of things. I think that's my last word. It just really can get my get me going. As I said, I have seen so many things come and go, so many people come and go, and just the malpractice of what is happening now, I have never seen in my life. I've never seen this in my life. I did not think I would ever see anything such as this as an educator.
Yes. So I'm going to take the last word.
Mhm.
I do agree with what the lady said, other lady said. Um, you need to vote. You need to stay informed, stay connected. Social media is a great place to connected. And my advice to any Houston voter would be to vote because, like Ms. Williams said, it is taxation without representation. And you don't have to own a home to be taxed. We are overtaxed. Like I had to explain to some teachers, we pay taxes on money that's already been taxed. So if you're paying sales tax, all of us do. Sales tax goes to schools, cities, all of that. Your right has been taken away as a voter in Houston ISD, a taxpayer to Houston ISD. This is your time to say no. You haven't had a board of managers, they don't listen. They're on there for whatever reasons. They are not there. They do not represent the community. That means you're being taxed, paying sales tax, property taxes, local taxes. I get taxed on the Port of Houston. I live in Spring. So
Right.
we all pay taxes. So say no to this bond and send a message to HISD the Greater Houston Partnership, and all those tap dancers for this bond, because we are saying no to Mr. Miles, Mike Morath, Greg Abbott, and the rest of them. You do not get to come into Houston, Texas, in HISD and take away our voice. Let your voice be heard and vote no for this bond. Proposition A and B. They split it up so that they could try to get some money somewhere. Say no to Proposition A and B. And I want to thank you all for being my gracious host. Let me get my applause for you. For you all speaking out and lending your voice, because this is important. And if you have people that want to see this, it's on our Facebook page. My Facebook page is public. It's public for a reason. You can always share this with uninformed people. If they say, well, why educators? Why do you all vote, say no against this bond? And you need the money. I would rather teach in a hot tent than to give $2 to HISD. So thank you all for tuning in, and tune in next week because we'll have the parents from the Magnet supporter group telling lending their voice to the community and telling you why they're telling you to vote against this bond. Thank you all again, and I'll see you all in my next live stream. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.